Tonight, when the sun goes down, you are going to flip a switch. Light will flood the room, and you won't think twice about it. But for 99.9% of human history, that switch didn't exist. When the sun set, the world went dark. And what happened inside that darkness shaped everything about who you are right now. Most people assume ancient humans just went to sleep when night fell. It seems logical. No lights, no screens, no reason to stay up. But that assumption is wrong. Deeply wrong. The night wasn't dead time for your ancestors. It was alive. And the things that happened after dark changed the course of human evolution in ways scientists are only beginning to understand. So what did ancient humans actually do at night? The first thing to understand is that the night they experienced was nothing like the night you know. Step outside in any modern city after dark, and you are bathed in artificial light. Street lamps, phone screens, the glow from a neighbor's window. Your night is never truly dark. Theirs was. On a moonless night in the open African savanna, visibility dropped to almost nothing. The stars were brilliant and overwhelming. The sounds were amplified. Every rustle, every distant call, every shift in the wind carried weight. Your ancestors didn't just live through the night. They had to read it. Anthropologist David Sampson of the University of Toronto has spent years studying sleep patterns in modern forager communities, particularly the Hadza of Tanzania, who live in conditions closer to ancestral humans than almost anyone else on Earth. What he found shattered the simple idea that ancient people just slept when it got dark. The Hadza don't all sleep at the same time. They stagger. At any given hour of the night, at least one or two people in a group are awake. Sampson calls this sentinel hypothesis. The idea that staggered sleep evolved specifically so that a human group was never fully unconscious and therefore never fully vulnerable. Your restless nights, the ones where you wake at 2 a.m. and lie staring at the ceiling, may not be a modern disorder. They may be an ancient inheritance. But being awake in the dark wasn't just about watching for predators. Something else happened around the fire. Fire changed everything. The moment your ancestors learned to control flame, roughly 400,000 years ago, the night cracked open. Fire extended the usable day. It pushed the perimeter of darkness back. And what filled those extra hours is one of the most fascinating questions in all of human prehistory. Anthropologist Polly Wiessner of the University of Utah studied the Juhulwansi Bushmen of the Kalahari over several decades, comparing conversations held during the day to conversations held around the fire at night. Daytime talk was dominated by practical matters: food, resources, complaints, work. But nighttime talk, firelight talk, was almost entirely different. Around the fire, people told stories. They recounted the deeds of ancestors. They spoke of spirits. They described faraway places and creatures they had never seen. Wiessner found that 81% of nighttime firelight conversation was devoted to storytelling, performance, and social bonding of a kind that simply didn't exist in daylight. The night, lit by fire, was when your ancestors became fully human. It was when imagination took hold. It was when culture was transmitted from one generation to the next. Every myth you have ever heard, every creation story, every legend about why the world works the way it does, it was born in a circle of people sitting around a fire in the dark. Think about what that means for a moment. The stories your brain is drawn to. The way a campfire still feels magnetic, still makes people lean in and lower their voices. The reason you feel strangely awake and philosophical at midnight, in a way you never feel at noon. These aren't accidents, they're residue. But the night held more than stories. Your ancestors used the darkness for ritual, for ceremony, for practices that blur the line between religion, medicine, and community. Archaeologist David Lewis Williams spent decades studying rock art produced by ancient sand people in southern Africa, much of it created in conditions of altered consciousness, induced by fasting, rhythmic chanting, prolonged dancing, or the use of psychoactive plants. Many of these rituals happened at night, or in deep caves where darkness was total. The cave itself was the night, and in that darkness, something happened in the human brain that researchers still struggle to fully explain. Visions, geometric phosphene patterns, the sensation of transformation, of becoming an animal, of crossing into another world. These experiences were not hallucinations in the way we casually use that word. They were treated as contact with a deeper layer of reality. And the images left on cave walls, the bison, the horses, the hand stencils flickering in torchlight, are the record of what people saw in the dark. The night was a spiritual portal, and your ancestors walked through it regularly. Sleep itself, when it finally came, looked nothing like yours. Historian A. Roger Eckhart of Virginia Tech published research in 2001 that permanently changed how historians understand sleep in pre-industrial societies. By combing through centuries of diaries, court records, and medical texts, Eckhart found overwhelming evidence that before artificial light became widespread, humans didn't sleep in one long block. They slept in two distinct phases. First sleep, lasting roughly 4 hours. Then a quiet waking period of 1 to 2 hours. Then second sleep until dawn. In that middle-of-the-night interval, people didn't lie anxious in bed worrying they couldn't sleep. They got up, they prayed, they talked to their partners, they had sex, they smoked, visited neighbors, or simply lay quietly in a state that one historical source described as a kind of gentle, lucid half-dream. This segmented sleep pattern appears again and again in the historical record across cultures and centuries. It vanished not because human biology changed, but because artificial lighting made the night shorter and productivity expectations made sleeping in two phases seem wasteful. Your biology still expects that gap. Sleep researchers today recognize a phenomenon called waking after sleep onset, WASO, which peaks at roughly the midpoint of the night in people with no light exposure. What modern medicine sometimes calls insomnia may, in many cases, simply be your ancient body doing exactly what it was built to do. Outside the fire circle, the night imposed its own logic on survival. Predators that posed little threat during the day became lethal in the dark. Lions, leopards, hyenas. These animals are built for night hunting in ways your ancestors were not. And yet early humans didn't simply cower until dawn. They adapted. Groups slept in elevated positions where possible, in trees, on rock outcroppings, at the mouth of caves with fire blocking the entrance. They organized the night watch. They learned the calls and behaviors of the animals around them well enough to read the dark like a second language. The absence of a certain sound could be as alarming as the presence of one. When the night insects stop, something is moving nearby. That knowledge was survival. There is a layer of this that reaches even deeper into your biology. Your circadian rhythm, the internal clock that governs when you feel sleepy, when your body temperature drops, when cortisol rises to wake you near dawn. This system evolved under natural light and fire. Pale blue light from screens mimics the wavelength of dawn sky, sending your brain a signal that it is time to be awake even at 11 p.m. Orange and red firelight, the light your ancestors sat beside for thousands of generations, sits at exactly the opposite end of the spectrum. It does not suppress melatonin the way blue light does. In other words, a campfire is not just romantic. It is the original sleep aid. Your brain was calibrated for it. When the fire died down, and the stories had been told, and the watcher had taken the first watch, and the group had pressed close for warmth and safety, sleep came. Not silence, not emptiness. The night was still full. Insects, wind, distant fire, the breathing of people you trusted with your life. That is the context in which your sleep architecture was built. You inherited all of it. The restlessness at 2 a.m., the pull toward stories in the dark, The way a fire still makes strangers feel like kin. The philosophical mood that arrives uninvited at midnight. None of this is strange. None of it is malfunction. It is the echo of 100,000 years of nights your ancestors lived through. Nights that were dangerous and sacred and alive in ways no electric light has ever been able to replicate. Tonight, when the sun goes down and you flip that switch, the light will flood the room, and you still won't think twice about it. But somewhere in the oldest part of your brain, something older than language will notice that the fire is gone.